Good morning and welcome to a conversation with the candidate or the candidate. Today we are fortunate and lucky and happy to have with us Rishi Kumar, who is in the running for the 16th district in California. Welcome, Rishi.
Great to be here, Rabinder. Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm looking forward to our conversation.
A pleasure to have you with us, sir. My name is Rabinder Sachdev, and this podcast, this video nugget is brought to you by the US India Political Action Committee. We are a group wherein we work with interests and focus areas of the Indian American community and the wider aspects also. So now, straight away digging into your candidature, you're running for the 16th district. You go to Washington, D.C. as a congressman. We wish you all the best. But before you reach there, of course, you have a lot of work to do, which you're already doing. So let me start with asking you, and because this podcast, this discussion will be shared on our USINPAC social media platforms as well as with you. So there'll be some audiences who will be listening to you. So our intent is to get your message out as a platform and share it with the wider constituency. So firstly, let me ask you, what is your core message on which you're running this election, if you could summarize it, please, to a listener or somebody who's doing it right now?
Yes, let's start with that. Rabinder, great question. Essentially, Silicon Valley, this is where I am in California, the heart of Silicon Valley. It includes cities like Palo Alto, Mountain View, and Menlo Park, where we have Facebook and Googles of the world. This is the innovation economy. And we have never had a tech-savvy leader ever in a million years of Silicon Valley. And we could change that working for companies like IBM, Cisco. I currently work for a startup which is in the big data analytics, AI, ML space. And the automation economy is happening, and we need able leaders stepping up to the challenges of America. But you also see the challenges today. We have inflation. We have huge challenges here in California with obviously gasoline prices, but housing, traffic, homelessness are big concerns. We have issues with California fires. People are concerned with the water resources. So we need to plan ahead, and we need the new generation of leaders stepping up, taking charge. And we believe we are ready and able. And as a council member of Saratoga, we were phenomenally successful in getting things done. And to give you an example, Rabinder, Saratoga is only 10% Indian Americans. So truly speaking, we don't have a base here, but we were reelected with the most votes in 64 years of Saratoga because we did have a base, the world of tech, folks who work in tech. They aspire for go-getters, leaders who are able to get things done, who are able to address the top challenges, just like they are dealing with in the world of tech. And we believe we truly stepped up to take some of those. And those are some aspirations we have, to be out there in Washington, changing the culture a little bit. It's not a culture of basically, taking heed of the lobbyist, but ensuring that the voice of the American people of our district is heard, addressed, and we are there solving problems. So that's really what I bring to the table, Rabinder.
Thank you so much, Rishi. I was struck by two aspects which you mentioned. One is that, leadership which is tech savvy. Well, sure, definitely from California and the Silicon Valley, in these areas, we should be expecting, tech savvy leadership out there. And secondly, you mentioned that, the Indian American diaspora community is probably 10% of your constituency. And that is also actually very much a focus of this programming and forecast. We want the message to reach out to a wider audience and audiences rather than only the Indian diaspora, because the issues which affect the diaspora, which affect anyone in America, are the same, irrespective of whichever diaspora backgrounds you come. So that said, I also noticed you mentioned about aspects like technology and water, and I think you've done some very interesting work in water bills out there. But stepping back, you had a run last time also, right? So what is your strategy in this election, and what are the lessons you learned from your last run, which you're applying now, which you hope to fine tune and improve, please, Rishi?
Rabinder, I can tell you have done your research, so I truly appreciate you spending time. And in 2020, we did 37% of the votes, which is historic. In the last 30 years, no other challenger has gotten so much. And in fact, it was historic because I was the very first Democrat from this district to make it past to the second round. And, we did better than obviously any Democrat. And for the very first time, a Republican was not on the November 2020 ballot. And the incumbent was very worried because it was a hot race. And we gave it a huge challenge. And we are quite proud of the effort we put in. And obviously, we're running in 2022, take two 2022 for a good win. And, talking to political consultants, when they evaluated my race, they tell me two things. One is, and these are ingredients for success. And one is name ID. It's all about name ID in terms of how you win races. And, obviously the incumbent has, 44 years of name ID in political office. And that's a huge edge they have. And that's something we need to overcome. And just running in a race, appearing on the ballot twice, running social media ads, sending out emails, putting lawn signs, those are establishing name ID. Because when we are knocking on doors now, people tell us, oh, I've heard of you, I've seen your name, I've seen you on Nextdoor, people are talking about you. So we have to create a buzz. And that buzz leads to name ID. And we ran a pretty solid campaign. Last year in 2020, we had over 1,000 volunteers. They came from 29 states, and we ran a very, very impressive campaign that Silicon Valley has never seen before in terms of mobilizing, engaging with people. So name ID is extremely important. And second part is the infrastructure. It takes, for us to recruit 1,000 interns or 1,000 volunteers, it takes a massive effort, and you need to have infrastructure in reaching out to people, talking about issues, putting up lawn signs in every neighborhood, in organizing town hall meetings. We were organizing 3 town hall meetings a month in the pre-pandemic days. So we figured out, applying the tech framework, and I'll keep going back to that. We were, as a tech leader, I managed business operations, ran the sales operations, ran the marketing, and all the other aspects of managing a business unit. And we apply that same framework to running and executing a pretty solid campaign. And we are able to recruit volunteers. We don't have a single paid staffer. We have created an amazing infrastructure. And these are the 2 reasons why we're going to win, Ravinder. We are on track. It's looking really good for us.
Awesome, very interesting. In fact, I was going to pick up the 2 things you mentioned. One is the name ID, which you said. So probably like, the opponent, the incumbent right now, right? She has quite a name ID. So you are building up your name ID also subsequent to the previous run and the work. Now, and of course, the whole campaign team and etc., which leads me to a question. And as you said, definitely yes, maybe using all elements of technology and big data or whichever you're an expert in. But that, and you're saying that these are volunteers, right? But still, it doesn't take away from the fact that any political campaign needs funds. So let me come to this point, because that would also be a message out to the audiences who are listening to this. Sure, you can do a lot of things on whatsoever, but you need some steam, and money is maybe the mother's milk of politics, so to say, right? So one does need for various aspects. So how is your fundraising coming along? And I noticed that one of your opponents, the incumbent, I think she had about $1 million at the end of December 21 as the last figures which I had. So how are your numbers coming along? And please feel free to pitch in for a fundraising pitch out here right now with us.
Yeah. So you are absolutely right on, Ravinder. And the fundraising is very, very difficult in a COVID world because we were not meeting, we were not having backyards. And for the last run, we spent about a total of $700,000 that I believe no other challenger. I mean, typical challengers would jump in and they would spend like $30,000, $40,000. And we ended up spending $700,000. And the incumbent spent about, I would say, $1.7 million. And that tells you the fear that we caused in the political system here. People were very worried what's going to happen. And I've been a delegate of the California Democratic Party. I've been an executive board member. We got plenty of endorsements, and we know how to run good campaigns. People came out to support us. So the money was impacted because of the pandemic. If it was a normal world, we would have probably raised a lot more money. But the reason why, if you take out the 50% from the incumbents' dark tainted money, the PACs and the special interest groups. The incumbent is the #1 recipient of pharma money in the US Congress. #2 is Kevin McCarthy. And then the incumbent has basically sold out to special interest in launching legislations that would increase the price of healthcare as the chair of the House Health Subcommittee. I would never, ever play the game like that because my allegiance is with the American people. I need to be here addressing their challenges. But that tells you how the big money is polluting American politics, where the voice of the American people are being stifled and these types of irregularities are happening. And this is something that we are totally against. People tell me, Rishi, you should take PAC money, special interest group money. And we say, no, it's never going to happen because our run is about integrity in American politics. So we are raising money furiously for the primary elections, which is coming up in early May, and invite any listener to go to rishikumar.com and contribute. We only take money from people, so it'll have to be from your own personal funds. But please go to rishikumar.com and make a contribution. Our plan is to leapfrog the incumbent in the primary election. And given the massive effort we have put in for almost 3.5 years now, we believe we will do extremely well. We need the funds, and we are raising funds furiously. We have fundraisers. This is the quarter end this month. Next weekend, we have a few fundraisers happening because the world is sort of a little bit easier now. Mm-hmm. But I ask anybody listening to please contribute at rishikumar.com. We take crypto, we take PayPal, we take, you can send checks to our campaign office, and obviously you can contribute online with credit cards. And we would be very, very honored to have your campaign contribution. Now, the limit is $11,600 for a couple. And in Silicon Valley, a lot of couples, they actually contribute $11,600 because the branding is rock solid. People have seen me politically. People have seen me succeed as a high-tech executive. And so we get a lot of those big checks. But any check is a great check. We would love to get your contributions to help us out.
Thank you, Rishi. Of course, pretty interesting. You covered a range of points in this, like the pharma money, #1, maybe. The incumbent is, yes, we did notice that, she's been getting, the incumbent has been getting contributions from the health sector. Your video, please. Thank you. Yeah. And you take in crypto, that's interesting. Definitely it's the mainstreaming of crypto, definitely. And you want to leapfrog, you're saying. So all the best for your fundraising and, your allocations. You also mentioned about endorsements, right? While we were talking that we have endorsements. So sometimes it's good for, in an anecdotal perspective, for our viewers and for us to know that which are some of the endorsements. You may have lots and lots of them, but which are some of the endorsements which you feel particularly happy about, positive about, proud about, or which you think align with your message. So would you like to share some such endorsements, please? You're on mute, please.
Yes, so politically, we have quite a few elected leaders locally who have endorsed my run, like Assembly Member Kansan Chu, former Assembly Member Nora Campos. We have many of our congressional cities, council members of those cities, they're endorsing our run. So politically, we have gotten many endorsements compared to other challenges in the past, because we have a track record politically as the delegate of the California Democratic Party, as the executive board member of the party, and we have done our due diligence here as a council member of Saratoga. Battling San Jose Water Company on behalf of 1 million people, we have established a very strong mark as an activist who's there to step up for the challenges of the people. Now, also, we have lots of other leaders who have endorsed our run from the world of technology. When you look at, for example, let's talk about B.V. Jagdish of Exodus, from the Indian American community, a few names that are the creme de la creme across the United States. We have Atiq Raza, who's the former president and CEO of AMD. Then you have Kanwal Rekhi. He's a very, very well-known investor. He runs InVenture Capital here in Silicon Valley. They have endorsed my run. Raj Jaswa, he was the CEO of Dino, chairman of Selectica. Syed Ali, who is the founder of Cavium Network. Ajit Singh, part of Nutanix. He's currently the CEO at ThoughtSpot, and many hundreds of other tech leaders from the Valley who can truly see getting things done approach. I'll give you a quick story on this one. We had a debate in 2020 with the incumbent, and we performed really well, and the feedback we got from the community was astonishingly good. For the first time, we demonstrated handle over issues. But I heard the story from one of my very strong supporters, and he was sitting in a boardroom meeting talking to people, and the congressional run came up, and they did not know that this person was supporting my run. And they started chatting about it. And the person said, the question was asked, who did you vote for? And the answer was Rishi Kumar. And so my supporter said, why exactly? What happened? Like, did you know this guy before? And the answer was, no. I just saw the debate for like 5 minutes, and we could clearly see that there was a big difference between Rishi Kumar and the incumbent. And that's why I decided to support him, So anyway, I think we have a great opportunity here, and we are pushing it really hard based upon all the endorsements are coming in daily, weekly, and new leaders, new community leaders and activists, and even political leaders are stepping up to support our run.
Awesome. Before moving on next, a few things you mentioned. You talked about you have a good handle over issues. We come to the issues right now, a few typical ones. And then, of course, this anecdote that, I think that's perhaps the best confirmation one can get, this anecdote that you cited, that some other people were talking about you without knowing that this person had voted for you and they saw you on the debate. But that also means that 5 minutes of if not a FaceTime, but a message time to the right audience can make a difference, right? And Exodus, amongst others, the names that you mentioned, Exodus, I remember this was maybe back in the late 90s, Exodus, right? So amazing. Now, issues, a few issues, and then we are heading into the closing rounds. Thank you so much. And folks, please, we are talking to Rishi Kumar running for the Congressional 16th District from California, and looking to put up a very good show and be in Washington, D.C., maybe in January next year. Now, on issues, California has maybe about, let's say, 2 million or so odd undocumented or such immigrants, right? What is your, in a short answer, what is your take on that, on this issue of undocumented immigrants, so to say? Because California particularly has that issue, right?
Correct.
So if in a short sense, you could, please.
Yes. So my approach is, I always talk about data-driven government, which is what I've done in the city of Saratoga, always looking at data and then coming up with the responses or defining a policy to address the challenges in our community. And as a mechanical engineer, I can only go by data. It cannot be emotions, or it cannot be based on political pressures. So what I believe in is that America needs to carve out a legal immigration system, and that includes immigrants from Mexico. If we need farm workers, and they work extremely hard, they're very productive, and they impact our economy in a very, very positive way. But for us to track their contribution into our economy and to ensure their success, we need to make it data-driven, and we need to make it define the legal framework of how they enter our country, and that way we can ensure their success. So that, in a nutshell, is what I believe in, Ravinder.
Sure. Thank you very much. And in fact, if we had more time, maybe we would have talked more on this, and perhaps, because another aspect would be that being in politics and public service, data is one thing, sure, but society is not only numbers and a mechanical machine, right? There are the qualitative aspects, and I'm sure you would be talking about that had we had more time on this particular thing. Thank you. Now, police reforms, your views, please. A short perspective overall, because police reforms and issues of race and all of that are also a big issue overall in the nation, as well as in California, please.
So my track record, the reason why someone like me won with the greatest number of votes in 64 years of Saratoga, we dropped burglaries, we dropped crime in my city, and we had over 100 neighborhood meetings. We launched new neighborhood leaders in every neighborhood. We took on crime as a big challenge, and people were very worried because, Silicon Valley is a very, very affluent community, but there are crime happening, and they are ransacking malls now. They are breaking into cars, catalytic converters. When we used to go watch a movie in the pre-pandemic days, we would leave our windows rolled down because they would just come in there and smash windows, even if you have nothing in the car. So crime is a big problem. And I believe defunding the police is not a good option. We need to ensure that we are providing the proper training with respect to ethnic cultures and everything else that is needed. We need to also engage other, for example, psychologists and other aspects of how we are going to interact with society. It doesn't mean that law enforcement needs to be pulled in for everything, but defunding the police, not an option.
Sure, thank you very much. And this leads us maybe to the next question, that in this overall context, that let's say a lot of politics in the US and especially inside the Beltway is probably said to be too much divided. There's too much of a divide, right? So when you are in Washington DC, let's say representing your district in the US Congress, how would you like to, if not, yeah, definitely yes, bridge the divide or work across the aisles to bring together some solutions, especially like in areas like water you mentioned and burglary and crime. I mean, these I would think are, if not pocketbook issues, but definitely daily life issues for any members of a normal society. So how would you progress towards your objectives, given the fact that the US Congress and the US polity is so divided, or so it seems? A quick overview, please.
Yes. And, bipartisanship, rishikumar.com/bipartisanship, because that's a key component of what I seek to take to Washington. The country is very divided. I was speaking to a political leader the other day, and he said that, Rishi, we are the most divided compared to what we were in the Civil War back then. And that is unfortunately a stark reality. And politicians are stoking the flames of division by playing partisan politics. When you look at incumbents who are in a heavy blue or a heavy red district, they are playing the political rhetoric. And you know what happens, Rabinder? They don't have to do a damn thing. They keep getting reelected again and again just because of the political noise they are creating. Nobody's looking at accomplishments. They are feeding into the emotions of people, and people believe that, oh, this guy's doing an amazing job, but no, not really. They haven't solved any problems. How many bills have they done? The job of a legislator is to legislate, and the incumbent, after staying 30 years in congressional office, has only sponsored 4 trivial bills, like renaming a building and things like that. So are we going to evaluate political leadership based upon data, or are we going to go with emotions? And the more of data we can do, the better off America will be. So my job is to create bipartisanship. There is a ferocious intensity to how we solve problems. Why am I the only elected leader from 6 cities that's been battling a very, very powerful water utility company? Because if there's a problem, I'm going to step up, because I believe just taking that first step, I may not have answers, but you have to step up and do something, do anything about it, which is what we did with crime, burglaries, whatever else, right? So we are going to be focused on solving problems, which means collaborating, teaming up with anybody who's willing to team up. Right here in Silicon Valley, team up with other elected leaders, team up with the governor, for example. They're trying to subvert the solar program. It's like we talk about climate change, but then they are taking other rebates. Now, these are things that I pick up on, and we take on a fight. They are trying to push high density housing without a plan for water infrastructure, housing, talk about schools or sewers. It's like a very flawed model. And when you look at that data, you say, okay, this is not going to be good. So my approach is teaming is winning, and we'll do our utmost to team up with anybody who's willing to team up with us. For example, if we are able to create Silicon Valley jobs in West Virginia, and it doesn't mean like coding jobs, it means whether social media, the young generation, when they are born, they have social media skills. Put them to work, create a social media economy, for example, in West Virginia, and wean them off the coal-fired economy, right? So these are ideas we have, these are opportunities we have to bring together America, bridge the divide, bridge the digital divide, and make it a much more vibrant economy, a country that is prospering and not going downhill that we are today.
Beautifully said, sir. I mean, as you were talking, and we are heading into the last segment of this program, and folks and viewers who are listening into this is Rishi Kumar running for the 16th district from California for the US Congress, sharing his views, which, and of course, his website is rishikumar.org, if I am correct. Rishi?
rishikumar.com. Yep.
Sorry, rishikumar.com. And if you're finding this interesting, please go into that website and learn more about him and his work and what he's promising to do for his district as well as for the country. But a couple of points, you mentioned very interesting. Will not. Solar and coal-fired economy, just to say that, in the background, the current context in the world, I think that's kind of taking a little bit of a hit now. It seems fossil fuels have to be kind of, reconciled again, given the global geopolitics right now. But that aside, you mentioned an interesting point that leadership is, the divides are because they're feeding into the frenzy. Leaders are feeding into the frenzy of the blue or the red. And instead of leading, they're being, not to say led, but though it should be what the public wants, that's what the leaders should do. So that's an interesting perspective you're sharing. Thank you so much. As we head into the last question, maybe, Rishi, would there be any message, specific or overall, this is the last segment for you, please, sir, that you would like to share with our listeners and viewers, and thank you so much for your time. Your concluding remarks, please.
So I would like to ask everybody listening that, we have an opportunity. We can either be on the menu or we can have a seat on the table. And politically, Indian Americans have to take charge and we have to have a seat on the table. And it's extremely important that we are there expressing our ideologies, our views, and providing that opportunity for America to integrate those solid, good values. And so political opportunity has to be created. It's never given to us. And we have to jump into races, join commissions, run for city council. It doesn't mean that we have to run for Congress. And, I think many of us, we end up playing the glamour game that if you're not running for US Senator, it's not a race that I'm interested in. But it happens at the local level. When you look at my stint here in the city of Saratoga, Indian Americans are so very comfortable in asking me, coming out and trying to understand the process. What does the city council do? How can I get involved? They're very comfortable. So the more of us that jump into public service, the better off we are. And in fact, I remember talking to a San Jose council member almost 10 years back, talking about, I was on the planning commission in those days, and he said, you should run for city council. I said, I don't think so. I have the time for it. And because working in tech, it takes a toll on you. He said, Rishi, if not for yourself, you should do it for the next generation because they need to have role models. And so my ask is, please get involved, whether as activists or organizing events, bringing people together, that's a game changer. And I'm a prime example of that because how I got started, Ravinder, I started doing a open mic in downtown at a coffee shop to help jumpstart our local downtown economy, which was hurting, to bring people to downtown and have them spend their money. And here we are running for Congress. You never know what the possibilities will open up. And what I did was everything I learned as a volunteer, as an activist, I applied back into my tech job. And I realized that we could get much more successful because your learning has improved. Your view of the world has improved, how you communicate, how you articulate, how you connect with people. And those are key ingredients for success. So please get involved. And part B is, please contribute to our campaign. We need the resources, we need the money. It's the mother's milk of any political campaign is money. We reject the dark tainted money. So please go to the website, rishikumar.com, and please make a campaign contribution. I truly appreciate you listening. Thank you so much. And Ravinder, such a pleasure.
Thank you so much, Rishi. That was such a pleasure to have this conversation with you. And I thank you for your time. And folks who are listening, this is brought to you by the US India Political Action Committee. And we look forward to you engaging with such wonderful discussions and with such passionate entrepreneurs, social entrepreneurs, let's say, who are bringing change. And this example, which you mentioned, that you started out with, stand up, whatever, at a downtown coffee shop, that's really amazing, Rishi, I would say. So all the best to you, sir, and I wish you good luck. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ravinder. Pleasure meeting you.
Pleasure.
Bye.